Fans are shocked and social media is in complete chaos right now after rumors exploded overnight about Mona Scott allegedly shutting down Love and Hip Hop for a brand new secret project, one that nobody saw coming. Insiders claim that the reality TV queen herself is cooking up a fresh show behind the scenes, and if the whispers are true, it's way more explosive than anything we've ever seen on Love and Hip Hop. But here's where it gets even crazier. Sources say the move didn't come without major drama. Reportedly, things got so tense between Mona and some of the show's biggest stars, including Rashida, Kirk Frost, Mendeecees, and Yandy Smith, that an all-out screaming match went down on set. Word is Rashida and Mona clashed over creative control, Kirk stormed off set, and Mendeecees allegedly called the entire production a trap. Meanwhile, Yandy is said to be devastated, claiming she was blindsided by the decision and left in tears after a heated confrontation with Mona. Now, fans are demanding answers, while cast members are dropping cryptic messages online, fueling even more speculation. What exactly is this secret project? And did Mona really kill Love and Hip Hop just to replace it with something else? Stay tuned because this drama is just getting started. The moment the first whispers started floating around about Mona Scott ending Love and Hip Hop, no one wanted to believe it. Fans brushed it off as another baseless rumor, another internet hoax that would disappear in a few hours. But by the time the weekend hit, something felt different. Cast members were unusually quiet. Behind-the-scenes crews stopped posting their usual on-set selfies. And then came the bombshell. Mona Scott was spotted leaving a private studio in Atlanta with a small group of producers, none of whom were involved with Love and Hip Hop. Insiders started talking, and what they were saying sent shockwaves through the entire fan base. Mona wasn't just working on something new. She was allegedly replacing Love and Hip Hop with a brand new show, a show that, according to sources, was already halfway through production. And the worst part, the original cast had no idea. Rashida was one of the first to sense something was off. She'd been reaching out to producers for weeks, asking when filming would resume, but all she got were vague responses and delayed schedules. Kirk Frost, already growing suspicious, decided to press one of the assistant producers for real answers. That's when the first crack appeared. The producer allegedly told Kirk, off the record, that Mona had been seen scouting new talent and locations, none of which had anything to do with Love and Hip Hop. Kirk brought the news back to Rashida, and the two began piecing together the signs. Missed meetings, scripts that never showed up, wardrobe fittings canceled without warning. Something big was happening, and it wasn't good. Around the same time, Mendeecees and Yandy were also starting to feel the shift. They had flown in from New York expecting to start filming, but were told the studio was under renovation. That made no sense to them, especially since they had filmed there just weeks prior with no issues. Frustrated, Yandy called one of the longtime producers she was close with, only to be met with silence. No callbacks, no texts. It was like the entire production had vanished overnight. Yandy began to panic. She built her brand around Love and Hip Hop. Losing that platform without warning could be a disaster for her image, her business, and her family. Tensions finally boiled over during an impromptu meeting that Mona Scott held in Atlanta. Only a few cast members were invited, and that immediately raised eyebrows. Kirk, Rashida, Mendeecees, and Yandy all managed to show up, despite the short notice. The mood in the room was ice cold from the start. Mona arrived with her new production team, all dressed in black, and wasted no time. She allegedly began talking about the future of television, how audiences wanted something more real, something less manufactured. That's when Rashida interrupted her. She reportedly stood up and said, "So what are we, fake now?" The room fell silent. Mona tried to calm the tension, but Kirk wasn't having it. He accused Mona of using them for years, then tossing them aside like old footage. Yandy was visibly emotional, and Mendeecees leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, quietly furious. Then came the part no one expected. Mona allegedly confirmed that Love and Hip Hop was on permanent hiatus. The new project, she said, was called Real Roots, and would focus on a new generation of Black entrepreneurs and influencers. She claimed it would be less about drama and more about legacy, but the cast didn't buy it. They knew what Mona considered less drama still meant heavy conflict. It just wouldn't include them. Yandy broke down, crying right there at the table. She said she sacrificed too much, opened up too much of her personal life, only to be thrown away without even a heads up. Mona stayed quiet, letting Yandy speak, but her expression never changed. What happened next turned the private meeting into an all-out war. Kirk stood up, slammed his fist on the table, and accused Mona of stabbing them in the back. He said, "You made your empire off our pain, and now that we ain't useful, you're just done with us?" Mona didn't respond, but one of her new producers reportedly stepped in and told Kirk to watch his tone. That's when everything spiraled. Mendici stood up and got in the producer's face. The two exchanged heated words, and security had to intervene. Rashida pulled Kirk back, while Yandy grabbed Mendici by the arm, trying to stop things from getting physical. But it was clear the damage was already done. This wasn't just a cast change or a business decision. This was personal betrayal. After the meeting ended in chaos, everyone went their separate ways. But the drama didn't stop there. Cryptic messages began appearing on social media. Yandy posted a black screen on Instagram with the caption, "Loyalty has an expiration date." Rashida tweeted, "Funny how success makes some folks forget who helped build it." Fans were confused, then furious. They flooded Mona Scott's page with comments demanding answers. Was Love and Hip Hop really canceled? What was this new show? And why were the original cast members left out in the cold? Meanwhile, rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed Rashida and Yandy were planning their own reality series in retaliation. Others said Mendici was preparing a tell-all interview to expose everything that went down behind closed doors. And Kirk? He reportedly started leaking behind-the-scenes footage from past seasons, hinting at what he called the real story that never aired. Fans couldn't get enough. Every clip, every comment, every post was dissected for clues. But as the internet exploded with theories, one thing was becoming crystal clear. This wasn't just the end of a show. It was the collapse of a reality TV dynasty. And in the center of it all stood Mona Scott, the woman who built an empire from raw emotion and real-life chaos, now accused of tearing it all down without a second thought. But even as the backlash grew, Mona stayed silent. She didn't respond to the cast. She didn't issue a statement. She didn't even post on her own accounts. All she did was move forward with her new project, quietly and confidently, as if none of the noise mattered. Yet the noise wouldn't die down. In fact, it was getting louder. Industry insiders began leaking more details. Apparently, Mona had pitched the new show months ago and received funding from a major streaming platform. That explained the secrecy. She had to keep things under wraps until the deal was finalized. But now that everything was locked in, she was ready to launch, and she didn't care who got hurt in the process. Word on the street was that the new cast was already filming in Atlanta and Houston, and that several big names were attached to the pilot. This only made things worse for the original cast. Not only had they been blindsided, they'd been replaced. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get more intense, another twist emerged. Someone close to the production leaked a voice note allegedly recorded during a heated argument between Mona and one of the network executives. In the clip, a woman believed to be Mona is heard saying, "I don't owe them anything. I made them stars. They should be thanking me." The internet erupted. Fans who once praised Mona as a visionary now called her out for arrogance and betrayal. Hashtags like #JusticeForAll and #BringBackYandy started trending. Everyone wanted to know what the cast would do next. And that's exactly where the next chapter of this story begins. The leaked voice note sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Fans couldn't believe what they heard. Mona Scott, the woman credited with launching so many careers, speaking with what sounded like pure disregard for the very people who helped build her empire. People who had aired their deepest traumas, their family drama, their personal battles, all for the sake of realness and ratings. Now she was allegedly brushing them off like they were disposable. And just like that, the public's loyalty began to shift. While Mona moved forward with her new show, the original Love and Hip Hop cast was suddenly being seen not just as forgotten celebrities, but as victims of betrayal. Kirk Frost wasted no time. He reached out to a few fellow cast members who had also been iced out. Word started spreading that Kirk and Rashida were quietly organizing a response. Not just social media posts this time, but a full-on expose. The couple had kept a vault of behind-the-scenes content from years of filming, unedited clips that could turn public opinion even more drastically. Rashida reportedly told one of her friends, "If Mona wants war, she's gonna get it. We got receipts she don't want the world to see." And with that, things took a darker turn. Meanwhile, Mendices and Yandy weren't sitting idle either. Yandy was still hurt, still reeling from how easily they had been discarded. She'd always stood by the franchise, even during scandals, even when fans turned on her for things said in confessionals or edited scenes. She had defended the process, defended Mona. But now, her trust was shattered. Mendices, usually the more reserved one, was the first to suggest going public. He said, "They think we need that platform. We built our names already. Now it's time to use it for our truth." And so began their own plan to tell their side of the story in a way that couldn't be edited, cut, or censored. The couple started reaching out to media outlets under the radar. Nothing official yet, but quiet conversations with podcasters, bloggers, and journalists started happening. The idea was simple. If Mona was going to move on without them, then they would make sure the world knew exactly what happened before she did. The betrayal, the manipulation, the fake promises of loyalty and inclusion. They wanted people to know the emotional toll it took, how they had built lives around filming schedules, depended on that income, and sacrificed privacy only to be ghosted. As the original cast began to mobilize, fans noticed something else. Some of the newer Love and Hip Hop cast members were staying suspiciously quiet. A few even unfollowed Mona on social media. It didn't take long for rumors to start. Some insiders claimed that even those cast members hadn't been informed about the cancellation until they saw the news online. Apparently, only a select few from the final season were offered spots on the new show, and everyone else had been left out to dry. Bitterness started spreading like wildfire. One anonymous source posted, "We were promised renewal contracts, then ghosted. Now we see our replacements on set? Nah, this ain't right." But it was a live stream from Rashida that really poured gasoline on the fire. She went live late at night, no makeup, no filters, just raw emotion. Thousands of fans tuned in as she talked about her pain and frustration. She didn't name Mona directly, but it was obvious who she was talking about. "Some folks smile in your face and then delete your whole career like it was just a storyline," she said, tears in her eyes. "We gave everything to that show. Everything. Our marriages, our kids, our heartbreaks. And for what?" Kirk could be heard off camera trying to calm her down, but she wasn't stopping. "And you're wondering if it's true? Yeah, it's true. They killed Love and Hip Hop, and they didn't even have the decency to tell us first." The comments flooded in. Fans were outraged, shocked, heartbroken. Many had grown up watching these people, followed their journeys for over a decade. Now they were finding out the show was over through live streams and rumors. And worse, they were watching their favorite cast members spiral emotionally in real time. Some viewers even started digging up old interviews and reunion clips, looking for signs that this fallout had been brewing for years. The signs were all there. Moments when cast members hinted at exhaustion, creative differences, and feeling exploited. They just hadn't put the pieces together until now. Then came another twist. Yandy posted a cryptic video on her Instagram stories showing a blurred-out contract and a caption that read, "They thought we didn't have options." Fans immediately began speculating. Was she joining a rival network? Starting her own reality show? Was she teaming up with Rashida and Kirk? The theories exploded, and within hours, blogs picked up the story. Headlines like "Yandy plotting revenge project" and "Kirk and Rashida set to expose Mona" were everywhere, And while the cast remained vague, the buzz was undeniable. The story had reached the mainstream. Mona could no longer ignore it. But instead of responding directly, Mona allegedly took a more calculated step. She made a quiet phone call to one of the original producers from Love and Hip Hop, the same producer who had once vouched for her to the network. According to someone close to the situation, Mona was panicking behind the scenes. The backlash had gotten bigger than expected. Streaming platforms were growing nervous. The new show's sponsors were asking questions. And worst of all, someone had leaked early footage from the Real Roots pilot, and fans weren't impressed. The reaction was lukewarm at best. Without the raw drama and iconic personalities from Love and Hip Hop, the new show lacked punch. It looked polished but empty. So now Mona found herself in a corner. The very cast she threatening the future of her next big project. And worst, some of them had serious dirt, decade-old secrets, never-before-seen footage, and receipts that could paint Mona in a very different light. A producer close to the situation allegedly warned her, "You need to make peace with them, or this whole thing could collapse." Back on the cast side, another informal meeting was taking place, this time without Mona. Kirk, Rashida, Yandy, and Mendeecees met in a private lounge in Atlanta to talk about their next steps. They debated whether to fully expose Mona or take the high road. Kirk wanted to go scorched earth. He felt they owed it to the fans. Rashida was torn. She still had friendships with some people in production. Yandy, always strategic, suggested a different angle. "We don't need to burn it down," she said. "We need to build something better, something they can't take from us." Mendeecees nodded in agreement. "It's time we own our stories. No more editing. No more being puppets." The room fell silent for a moment, and then something shifted. For the first time since the news broke, the group felt empowered. Not defeated, not discarded, but motivated. They didn't need Mona's permission to be relevant. They just needed each other. They agreed to stay quiet for now, keep building behind the scenes, and when the time was right, they would make their move. But even as they plotted, the situation outside that room was growing more intense by the minute. Fans were demanding answers, networks were making calls, and bloggers were publishing story after story, each more explosive than the last. The world was watching, and the fallout was far from over. And just when everyone thought things might cool down, another bombshell dropped, and this one came straight from inside the new production. The bombshell came in the form of an anonymous message sent to several gossip blogs, including a few with close ties to reality TV insiders. The message included a screenshot of a group chat between members of the new cast of Real Roots. In the chat, one of the new cast members expressed frustration over the direction of the show, writing, "This ain't what I signed up for. It's boring. They want us to fake fights, but it's not landing. It feels like we're knockoff versions of the old crew." Another replied, "I miss the real Love and Hip Hop energy. This don't feel real. Fans are already dragging us online." Within minutes, the screenshot went viral. Fans began tearing the new show apart before it even officially aired. The leaked footage, the unenthusiastic reactions from the new cast, and the mounting backlash against Mona Scott combined into a storm she could no longer control. And just as things started spiraling, another former Love and Hip Hop cast member entered the chat. This time, it was Scrappy. He hadn't said much since the cancellation news broke, but now he was ready to talk. In a candid Instagram live session, Scrappy joined Rashida, Kirk, and even Mama D to publicly address the chaos. "They forgot who made the show hot," Scrappy said, pacing in his backyard. "We gave them real. We gave them pain, drama, love, heartbreak, all of it. And now they're replacing us with folks who don't even got real beef. Come on, man. That's disrespect." Mama D chimed in, yelling in the background, "I'm the queen of the South and they gone try to erase me? I don't think so." The live had over 70,000 viewers by the time it ended, and fans flooded the comments with support, calling for a boycott of the new show and demanding that the original cast be given their own platform. At the same time, things behind the scenes grew more chaotic. it was revealed that one of the producers from the original Love and Hip Hop Atlanta was considering breaking their NDA to expose what they called a decade of manipulation and financial abuse. In an anonymous post shared through a media outlet, they claimed cast members were often misled about their pay, contracts were changed without notice, and personal stories were edited in ways that damaged reputations. They didn't care about us. The post read, they cared about ratings, and when someone stopped pulling numbers, they got pushed out. This added fuel to the fire. Kirk and Rasheeda reportedly reached out to the producer and began discussions about using the information in a documentary-style project. The idea was to tell the full story from the inside, uncensored, raw, and from the perspective of the very people who made Love and Hip Hop a cultural phenomenon. Yandy and Mendeecees were on board too. They began speaking with legal teams to make sure they could move forward without breaching any contracts. Everyone knew it would be risky, but the potential reward, reclaiming their narrative, was worth it. Mona #BringBackTheOriginals. Her team was scrambling to do damage control. They tried promoting the new show with teaser trailers, cast interviews, and flashy marketing, but it wasn't working. Fans weren't buying it. One trailer posted on YouTube had more dislikes than likes, and the comments were brutal. People wrote things like, "Bring back Kirk and Rasheeda, this ain't it, and we want the real stars, not these randoms." What made things even worse for Mona was a leaked voice memo from a Real Roots staff meeting, where someone from production was caught saying, "Maybe we should have just stuck with the original crew." The voice wasn't identified, but fans believed it was someone high up. The memo quickly spread across platforms, and blogs jumped on it. Now it wasn't just about cast drama, it was about a full-blown production crisis. Mona was losing control, and the original cast knew it. While all of this was unfolding, Kirk, Rasheeda, Yandy, and Mendeecees met again, this time with a group of independent filmmakers. They discussed building their own platform. Not just a documentary, but an ongoing series where they controlled the narrative. No scripts, no fake fights, just real stories. The filmmakers loved the idea. They believed fans were ready for something new, something authentic. And so, plans began taking shape for a digital platform that would feature the original Love and Hip Hop cast telling their truths, creating fresh content, and finally owning their image. The group also reached out to other former cast members, Carly Red, Mimi Foss, even Joseline Hernandez. Word spread quickly. Some were hesitant, others eager, but all of them agreed on one thing. They had been used, discarded, and deserved better. The buzz around this potential reunion show began to spread, and fans were living for it. Every social media comment, every blog post, every tweet seemed to push the movement forward. But the tension reached a boiling point when Yandy went live again, this time not to talk but to show. In a dramatic moment, she pulled out a hard drive labeled Season 6 raw footage. She held it up to the camera and said, "They thought they owned our stories. They don't. We got the receipts. And when we drop this, you'll finally see what they never wanted you to know." She didn't elaborate, but the message was clear. Something big was coming. The internet exploded. Fans speculated about what was on the hard drive, unseen arguments, private conversations, proof of stage scenes or mistreatment. The mystery only heightened the drama. Within hours, major gossip pages were covering the moment, and celebrities began weighing in. Even Cardi B, who started on Love and Hip Hop New York, tweeted a cryptic message. "They've been doing folks dirty. Glad people speaking up now." That single tweet sent everything into overdrive. The story had officially gone mainstream. Mona Scott knew she had to act fast. She reportedly reached out privately to Kirk and Yandy, trying to arrange a meeting. Sources claim she wanted to offer them an executive producer role on the new show as a peace offering. But Kirk wasn't interested. He told one confidant, "Too little, too late. We ain't your pawns no more." And that was that. The original cast was moving forward with their own plan, and nothing was going to stop them now. Production for their independent series quietly began. They filmed pilot footage in Atlanta, hosted interviews, and captured real moments between the cast members. The energy was raw, unscripted, and emotional. Fans were hungry for it. Sneak peeks leaked online, and the response was overwhelming. People weren't just interested, they were invested. It felt like the start of something historic. And while Mona's Real Roots was struggling to find its footing, the originals were building something that could actually change the game. But behind the scenes, Mona wasn't finished. She still had connections, still had lawyers, and still had power. Word began spreading that she was considering legal action to stop the new show, citing non-disclosure agreements and intellectual property rights. But the cast wasn't worried. They had receipts, they had lawyers of their own, and more importantly, they had the people on their side. And as the pressure continued to build, one final surprise loomed on the horizon. A surprise that not even Mona Scott saw coming. A betrayal from within her own camp. Someone close to her, someone trusted, was about to flip the script entirely. And when they did, it would send shockwaves through the entire industry and expose the one secret that could destroy everything Mona worked to protect. It started with a simple post, no caption, just a photo. The image showed a contract, heavily redacted, with Mona Scott's name and signature visible at the bottom. It was uploaded by someone who had never spoken publicly about love and hip-hop before, with Mona behind the scenes for years. Their name was Kevin, a former production assistant turned coordinator who had access to meetings, documents, and internal communication most people never saw. For years, Kevin had remained loyal, but now, with everything falling apart, he decided it was time to speak. Within minutes of posting the image, Kevin followed it up with a lengthy statement. In it, he explained how Mona had manipulated not just the cast, but also her own staff. "I stayed silent for too long," he wrote. "I saw people get exploited, lied to, thrown away like trash. They built this brand and got nothing in return. She used their pain for profit and left them with nothing when the ratings dipped." He included screenshots of emails where cast members were promised bonuses that never came, and where producers were instructed to provoke drama by feeding false information to certain cast members just before scenes were filmed. The most explosive part of Kevin's reveal came near the end of his statement. He posted a voice memo, an actual recording from a closed-door meeting between Mona and her top producers. In the audio, Mona could be heard saying, "They're not stars. They're disposable. Once they stop trending, we'll find new ones." The tone was cold, detached. It was the final nail in the coffin for her already crumbling image. Fans were horrified, cast members were furious, and Mona, she went completely silent. The backlash was swift. Real Roots was officially put on pause, with the network releasing a vague statement citing unforeseen production challenges. Sponsors completely pulled out. Blogs and mainstream media outlets were now framing the entire love and hip-hop empire as a cautionary tale of reality TV gone too far. Mona's reputation, once celebrated as a pioneer of urban television, was now being torn apart in real time. And while she tried to do damage control privately, the original cast kept moving forward. Rashida, Kirk, Yandy, Mendeecees, Scrappy, and even Mama D gathered in Atlanta to announce their next move. They rented out a small studio and held a live press conference streamed across multiple platforms. Yandy stood at the center, holding a mic as the rest stood behind her. "We're not here to drag anyone," she began. "We're here to take back our story." She outlined their new platform, an independent digital network that would focus on real stories from real people, starting with their own. It would be called Truth Uncensored. The announcement was met with overwhelming support. Celebrities, influencers, and showing a secret clause in the cast contracts that allowed the network to use their likeness in perpetuity, even after firing them. It was buried deep in the fine print, something many didn't even know they had agreed to. It sparked outrage. Lawyers stepped in. Class action suits were discussed. The network scrambled to clean up the mess. But it was too late. The original cast wasn't just exposing the truth. They were building a new standard, and people were watching. Other reality TV personalities began reaching out, asking how they could reclaim their own stories. A quiet revolution had started, and it all traced back to the fallout between Mona Scott and the very people who made her empire possible. But even with all the progress, one thing remained uncertain: how far Mona was willing to go to protect what was left of her brand. Reports emerged that she was trying to shop a tell-all book deal, hoping to spin her version of the story. Insiders claimed she was already in talks with a ghostwriter and planned to frame herself as a misunderstood visionary who was simply ahead of her time. But fans weren't buying it. The receipts were out, the damage was done. As filming for We Made the Culture wrapped up, the cast gathered for one final scene together. They weren't acting. There were no producers telling them what to say. It was just real people sitting in a circle, talking about what they had been through. Yandy looked around and said, "They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds." The room fell silent. And then, one by one, they began sharing their hopes for the future, not just for themselves, but for everyone who had ever been silenced by a system built on lies. When the camera stopped rolling, no one rushed to leave. They stayed, hugged, cried, laughed. It was the kind of moment that couldn't be scripted, and it was a reminder of why they fought so hard to get here. They had been used, mocked, villainized. But now, they were free, and their story, finally, belonged to them. The premiere date was set. Fans marked their calendars. The industry watched closely. And somewhere, far from the spotlight, Mona Scott sat in silence,